Today with Miss Palmerton's class, we're going to learn to round to the nearest 10 and round to the nearest 100. To start, we're going to round the number 37 using a number line. We're going to round to the nearest 10, so we need to start the number line at 0 and count by 10. So I have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, I'll start. So 37 would be somewhere around here. If you look at the number line, you have to look at which number the 37 would be closest to when counting by tens. It looks like it's closer to 40 than it is to 30. So that means that 37 rounded to the nearest 10 is 40. Now let's round a different number to the nearest 10 using a number line. Let's use the number 196. We're still going to be counting by tens, but I'm going to start at a different number. I'm going to start at 180 because it's kind of close to my number. And I'm still counting by tens. 180, 190, the next 10 would be 200, 210, and 220. 196 would fall about here on our number line. So if you look at the number line to decide which 10 196 is closest to, is closest to the 200. So that means 196 rounded to the nearest 10 is 200. Now we're going to use a number line to round to the nearest 100. It's going to be very similar to rounding to the nearest 10, but this time we're going to be counting by hundreds. So let's round 384. I'm going to start at 200 since it's kind of close to my number. The next 100, if we're counting by hundreds, is 300, then 400, and 500. Right here would be about 350. So we know that 384 would be about here. So looking at the number line on which 100 is closest to 384, our number would be 400. So that means 384 rounded to the nearest 100 is 400. Let's try that again with a different number. This time we're going to round 619. I'm going to start off at 500. Counting by hundreds, my next 100 would be 600, 700, 800. So we have to figure out where 619 is on our number line. Well, 650 would be about here, so you know that 619 would be about there. So looking at which 100 619 is closest to, our answer would be 600. So 619 rounded to the nearest 100 is 600. This time when we round to the nearest 10, we're going to use the rhyme. 5 or more, raise the score. 4 or less, let it rest. So if it's 5 or more, we're going to increase our number that's in our tens digit. If it's 4 or less, we're going to let it rest. So let's look at the number 992. We're rounding to the nearest 10. The 9 is in our tens digit. So since we're rounding to the nearest 10, we're going to figure out, are we changing that 9 to a higher number, or are we letting it rest and stay the same at a 9? To decide on what happens to that 9, we're going to use our rhyme. 5 or more, raise the score. 4 or less, let it rest. So we're looking at this 2. Since the 2 is less than 4, we're going to let it rest. So 992 rounded to the nearest 10 is 990. Let's try rounding to the nearest 10 using the rhyme again. This time we're going to round 357. So since we're rounding to the nearest 10, the number that we have to look at is our 5 since it's in our tens digit. So it's either going to rise up or it's going to stay the same. So to decide what happens to that 5, we look at the 7. Since the 7 is 5 or more, that means that it's going to make that 5 go up to the next largest number. So 357 rounded to the nearest 10 is 360. Let's use our rhyme again. This time we're going to round to the nearest 100. We're going to round 687. Since we're rounding to the nearest 100, the 6 is what is going to either rise up or it's going to rest and stay the same. So to decide what happens to that 6, we look to the number that's just to the right of it, our 8. Since the 8 is 5 or more, we're going to raise the score of that 6. So 687 rounded to the nearest 100 is 700. Let's use the rhyme again for rounding to the nearest 100. This time we're going to use number 351. So since we're rounding to the nearest 100, we are looking at that 3 to decide if that's going to go up or if it's going to rest and stay the same. To decide what happens to that 3, we look to the number that's just next to it, and that is a 5. Since it's a 5 or more raise the score, that means that the score of the 3 is going to go to the next highest number. So 351 rounded to the nearest 100 is 400. Now we're going to round to the nearest 10 using rounding roller coaster. This is my arch of the roller coaster. It's the big hump that the roller coaster has to go over. If my roller coaster falls over here, that means that my number is going to be rounded down. If my roller coaster falls over here, that means it's going to be rounded up. Let's add our numbers. The number that we're going to round is 47. So since we're rounding to the nearest 10, our 4 is in the tens digit, and that's the number that's going to go up or it's going to stay the same. To figure out how we round our number, we're going to look at our 7. So let's put our roller coaster on the number 7. Since it's on this side, if our roller coaster's electricity would just shut off, it would fall down this way. That means that 47 would go up to the next largest 10, which is 50. So 47 rounded to the nearest 10 is 50. Now we're going to round to the nearest 10 using roller coaster again. So here is my roller coaster. We're going to round 352. Since we're rounding to the nearest 10, that's our tens digit. So that means that we're going to look at this number to decide how we're going to round. So let's put our roller coaster on the number 2. So again, if our roller coaster just shut off and it had to roll back down, it would roll back this way. So that means our number is going to go down to the next nearest 10 that's below it. So that means it's going to go to 350. Now let's round again to the nearest 100 this time using our rounding roller coaster. So here is our roller coaster track. We're going to round 352 again. This time, since we're rounding to the nearest 100, that is our 3 because it's in our hundreds digit spot. So that means that we have to look at that 5 to decide what happens to the number. So let's put our roller coaster on the number 5. If our roller coaster had stopped there, it would actually fall this way. So that means our number is going to go up to the next nearest 100, which is 400. So 352 rounded to the nearest 100 is 400. Let's round to the nearest 100 again using our rounding roller coaster. So we have our roller coaster track, and this time we're going to round 449. So since we're rounding to the nearest 100, our 4 is in our hundreds digit, and we have to look at the second 4 to decide what happens to our number. So let's put our roller coaster on its track. It's going to go on the 4. But if our roller coaster stopped, which way would it fall? It would fall this way. That means our number is going to be rounded down. So 449 rounded to the nearest 100 is 400. Now let's take a quiz. First question, what is 147 rounded to the nearest 10? If you answered 150, you are correct. Next question, what is 147 rounded to the nearest 100? If you guessed 100, you are correct. The next question, what is 379 rounded to the nearest 10? The answer is 380. What is 379 rounded to the nearest 100? The answer is 400. What is 246 rounded to the nearest 10? $250 is our correct answer. 246 rounded to the nearest 100. $200 is our correct answer. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.